not being able to make them see that their money would give them a far better return if it was invested, had sent her back to London with a pounding headache, and the unpleasant sinking sensation that Peter would consider her to have failed in not persuading them to change their minds. Why couldn't her parents be more like Peter's? His father and mother had retired to a small south coast town where they played golf and bridge. They had an immaculate detached bungalow with smooth green lawns and well-disciplined flower beds. No pets were allowed in the Holmes household, no cats with unexpected litters of kittens, no rough stray dogs with large muddy paws and hairy coats, no parrots who called out the most appallingly rude things when one was least expecting it. She still blushed to remember how the first time she had taken Peter home, the parrot, which her mother had originally been taking care of for a friend, and which had somehow or other lingered on to become a permanent house guest, had flown onto Peter's shoulder and bitten quite sharply at his ear before remarking, in a voice which sounded uncomfortably like her mother's, "Oh dear, such a shame. Pious Peter, pious Peter."
Well, perhaps once they get back from this holiday they'll come to see sense and sell up. I must say, Elspeth, I do find your parents rather—
Peter frowned and studied his plate, as though unable to find the words to describe his reaction to her family, while Elspeth hung her head in acknowledgement of his criticism. It wasn't until she had come to live in London that she had realised how eccentric and unusual her home life was. Having a father who was a farmer had caused a few amused raised eyebrows, but not too much other comment in the high-powered world of merchant banking. It was only after she'd made the mistake of taking a colleague home with her one Christmas that she'd made the humiliating discovery of how very odd and amusing her family was to others. She had reacted instinctively on learning that Sophie, the other girl, had had nowhere to spend Christmas, inviting her to return to Cheshire with her, knowing quite well that another body would hardly be noticed in the crowd that her mother always drew around her. Having produced only one child, her mother had gone on to make up for this by maternally adopting every chance waif and stray she could, both of the human and animal varieties. And so it was that the farm had abounded with pet lambs turned into aggressive and demanding sheep, goats who could never be milked, chickens too old to lay but whose necks could never be wrung, sheepdogs who only dreamed lazily of sheep in their old age as they huddled up to the Aga, a collection of barn cats who never hunted, although thankfully in those days the parrot had not been in evidence. Sophie had seemed to fit in so well with her family that it had come as a double shock to walk into the staff room behind her and discover her entertaining a crowd of their fellow employees by telling them in her high-pitched Lone Ranger voice about the chaos of the Turner household. Elspeth had never felt so humiliated in her life. She had resolved there and then that in the future no one would ever be able to humiliate her or laugh at her in that kind of way again. When her mother had asked gently why she no longer brought any friends home with her when she came back from London, she had quietly and firmly avoided a direct answer. From then on, her home life and her career were two separate things. After that, she had been cautious about where and with whom she made friends. She had swapped her room at the small, crowded flat she'd shared with 4 other girls, and had found herself a lone bedsitter. Having more time to spend on her own had given her the opportunity to concentrate on her exams, so that when Sophie had been simpering over the engagement ring she had managed to extract from an up-and-coming bank clerk, she, Elspeth, had been quietly receiving the congratulations of her management on the excellence of her exam results. While her colleagues had opted for the glamour and high-powered pressure of the dealing room, she had set her sights in a different direction, cautiously looking ahead to the future, and equally cautiously deciding to leave the world of mainstream banking for the more specialised arena of merchant banking. Here it seemed she had found her niche. She loved the meticulous, quiet, thoughtful concentration needed for such work. She liked being out of the public eye, working behind the scenes, and she was rewarded for her diligence with a good salary which had enabled her to buy her own small dockside apartment and to run a neat, economical car.